Just start off with, perhaps Brandon, you can start off here.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Hello, my name is Brent Pierce. I've been doing robotics now for 20 years. 10 years of that, at the beginning, was doing a PhD in humanoid robotics, mainly looking at like serial acid activators, low-cost robots. The last 10 years I've been doing entrepreneurship, done 3 robotic companies. The second one, someone said was successful, shipped like 25,000 robots, offices all around the world. About a year and a half ago, I started doing a humanoid company. Yeah, because I love it.
I'm Bruce Richard. I'm Senior Director of New Business Development for Jabil. Jabil are a global contract manufacturing organisation. We've got over 100 sites, $30 billion revenue. I'm focused predominantly on robotics and warehouse automation, so global responsibilities for that. So we're working with companies like Ocado, Synbotic, Amazon Robotics on warehouse automation and robotics. We've sponsored the STIQ humanoid report. You may have seen in the press recently, we're working with some of the US humanoids companies, specifically Aptronic, on developing their humanoid.
Well, hello everybody, my name is Sotiris Stassinopoulos. Come from Greece with this name, you can call me Sot. My background is in robotics and AI as well. I have a PhD in robotics from Tsinghua University in China. Actually, from the more than 17 years of my experience in robotics and AI, 13 of them were spent in China, Beijing and Shenzhen. I was the product director for STIQrobotics for humanoid robots for industrial applications back in Shenzhen. And I bring that experience here. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Humanoid. You can actually see the poster. Yes, we are sponsors. That's why we get this treatment. Yeah, we'll be interested in talking to more of you about potentially use cases. And maybe, as you can see, we have a Humanoid Academy being launched soon. So if you want more details about it, we can talk about it. As for myself, very briefly, I also had some startups in the field. Both of them failed, but we learned. But I'm here working with Humanoid to create the world's most reliable, safest, and commercializable robots. We'll talk about that maybe a bit later in the network. So thank you so much. Let's get this rolling.
So thanks to everyone first, and thanks to you panelists for turning up as well and enjoy. So when we talk about humanoids, obviously it's there's like some extremities, like 4 limbs and a head. That's typically a humanoid. But what do you see defining a humanoid as?
I guess I'll start. we did set an order, to be honest. Yes, I'll start. Well, it's difficult to define humanoids sometimes because now we have a lot of different subcategories that could be classified as humanoids or not. Usually when we talk about humanoids, they are robots that have some sort of human form. So either it's upper body with a head, a torso, 2 arms, lower body could be bipedal, could be wheelbase. So it's something in its form that is very close to human form, and that is very intentional because you want it to perform tasks that are performed by humans. So you want it to resemble the way humans move, you want it to resemble the way humans resolve problems, accomplish tasks. So you use them in environments that usually humans are used. So you have a robot that is not just, an AR, it's not just a robotic arm, it's not just a drone, it's something that resembles in a way the human form factor. At least that's the general definition I would give because, as I said, we have bipedals, we have wheelbases. I do not want to exclude any of these as long as it has resemblance to the human factor that can solve problems like a human.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, but I think to add to that, it's really a robot that's going to be able to work in the same environment as humans. So you're not having to adapt it, you're not having to change any of the infrastructure in a facility for yourself. Thank you very much.
Going further, I think they answered it perfectly. I'd say the only thing to add to it is probably what you alluded to is, can the robot actually start using the same tools as a person? Can it use a drill? Can it use a printer instead of having to have like custom fixtures or like custom activators? Like, can it use either a gripper or some sort of other means to use the standard tools a person could use?
Interesting. Thanks. So another thing that we have noticed as well is when people talk about humanoids, increasingly when we get people coming to us like from media and asking us about humanoids, for example, is that they always seem to talk about humanoids as in a vacuum. It's like there are no other robots, it's just humanoids. So what competition do you see for humanoids, by the way? It's a very broad question.
I think it would be fair to just have people start and then I'll unless you want me to like speak in front of them.
I would just say the main competition I see with humanoids is they're such a generic robot that everyone says it can do everything, but can it do each individual job incredibly well? So an AMR designed to just go from A to B, it's going to be cheaper, more efficient, faster. You're going to have fixed-based robots that are fixed on the table, they're going to be able to pick in situ. So the question becomes, what jobs can those not do, and what jobs can not a particular or specialist robot can do in volume? One of the big selling points is you will be able to produce these in like the tens of hundreds of thousands of them, and then the unit cost will be lower. But at the same time, you'll always get specialist robots that will be quicker, faster, cheaper for certain niche tasks.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something that, you know, for the kind of repeatable mundane task where, you know, if you have a human doing that, they're going to get kind of, you know, repetitive strain or difficult into difficulties. I think as well, just having that flexibility to do different use cases, different applications, it's going to open up a lot more. Absolutely, there's dedicated specialist robots that can be used for, you know, dedicated specialist processes, but then, you know, can that be repurposed for something else? Possibly not.
Yeah, I mean, I will agree. I want to also add to this conversation that humanoids are not here to compete with AMRs or robotic arms that have been already been specialized or optimized to do a specific task. They are mainly here to join these aisles of automation. I mean, I'm not the first that came up with this phrase, so I will not claim that it's mine, but just connecting aisles of automation is mainly what we want to be using humanoids for, and also the fact that whether we want it or not, is that we have this bottleneck that already existing types of automation have reached. So we cannot go above this threshold. A lot of the facilities we're working with, they've already been trying to automate a lot of these processes to the greatest extent, and up to now they have been reaching their limits. So the only thing that can get them past this limit is humanoids that can do things more flexibly and can connect these automation files, as I mentioned.
So thanks for that. So next question might be even moved, but let's go for it anyway. But one of the unique points of humanoids is this, that it can connect all the different islands of automation, whatever you want to call it, yeah. Or that they can do several different things. So for example, we spoke to a few warehouse automation or warehouse people. They said, well, we can use it in the morning. It can unload a container, for example, during the day. It can perhaps do some order picking, and then in the evening perhaps help with sortation or even loading the trailers and so on as well. So what is your view on this kind of flexibility or the ubiquity of humanoids? I mean, are they like this Swiss Army tool for factories and warehouse automation people in general?
Yeah, I mean, there's flexibility in it for sure. I think, you know, when you look at that, I mean, I think the kind of key thing at the moment is getting the humanoids into that environment and learning from that, getting the data, and, you know, getting these large language models trained on these different applications. I mean, that's not an insignificant thing to happen. But, you know, absolutely, I think as cost comes down, as you know, the applications that they're trained to do become more prevalent, and I think absolutely that you know, there shouldn't be any reason why you know, you can't be using it for multiple different processes in a day.
Yeah, one of the key advantages that customers ask us, why should we use humanoids instead of some other solution that is specialized and can reach more or less the same, let's say, success metrics. We tell them that because a lot of the solutions that they're using, especially in terms of infrastructure that is being installed, they are so inflexible and rigid, and they take up a lot of space. And what we say, they are always designed for peak time. So there's so much waste in these, let's say, facilities and let's say their capacity, because they're always designed to meet peak time requirements. So what you said before is, it is a sort of a Swiss Army knife that you can use flexibly from one, let's say, use case to the other when you have these demands, like increasing demands between different use cases. So that's what we think is the magic of humanoids, that you can usually use them as you wish, as we say, flexible units of automation. That's how we want to look at them. And of course, we don't think that general purpose is very, very close for now, but we do believe that multi-purpose is something we can achieve in the next 1 or 2 years, and that's what we're going for. One of the main things that we're talking to customers about is we can do one use case, but the real breakthrough is if your robot can do more than one use case, at least 2 to 3 use cases in the same facility. And that's what we prove. Like, the proof of concept for us is not just one use case, it's at least 2 to 3, so we can justify that they can be using them in this manner.
I'll also add, it's not even the jobs that they're hired to do. The one thing our customers get very excited is we ask them, like, what would you do if you had free labour for the third shift? So a lot of these warehouses, factories, they're working from 8 in the morning to say 10, 11 at night. You're like, well, what if you had free labour for the rest of that 9 hours overnight? What sort of task, what sort of efficiency could you get if basically you had a whole third shift that's completely free to you? And that's when they get excited. So examples of warehouses, you know, they can move stock around at night, so it's much more efficient to pick in the day. You talk to the factory operators, they're like, we do X, Y, and Z, and different things if you just basically had a third shift of free labour.
Interesting. So now over to the tough questions. Yeah. So how can UK or the British Isles get a slice of the humanoid fundraising? For example, so we wrote in our humanoid report, for example, is that we see fundraising for humanoids is split fairly evenly between US or North America and Asia, China essentially. Europe probably has something like 5% of total fundraising so far. So how can the UK get a slice of that? It's up to you guys here now. How?
I'll start with that, and I'll bring some insights, I guess, from my experience in China, because I think that is not something that we always should aspire to, but China has been doing really good in terms of robotics research and the way they have been, let's say, growing this kind of their, let's say, technology. So what has happened in China is very intentional from the government. They have been putting 5-year plans each 5 years, and within 5 years they set goals for specific technology departments to grow. So for the last 10 years, robotics has been in their radar. So for the previous 5 years, it was robotics in general, and for the last 5 years, it's been humanoid robotics to have the first general purpose humanoid robot. Is part of their government, let's say national government plan to make this a priority for all the funds that are being used. So every policy that comes out of this is generally assisting all the businesses that work in that. And just to bring an example, for the company that I used to work with, for Unitech, the government gave specific funds to 3 or 4 big companies to create a research lab. And that research lab was fed by most of the, let's say, research results by all of these top, leading humanoid companies, and they created their own humanoid, let's say, technology. And then they cross-pollinated this sort of, let's say, approaches with every best practice from all these companies and created something even better. And then they redistributed this technology back to the companies. And even not just only the 4 or 5 companies, but to most companies that wanted to take advantage of these technologies. So this is quite, let's say, I won't say anti-capitalistic, but it is kind of a way of redistributing technology resources within your country for the benefit of your country, if you think that this is the biggest, let's say, priority of your country. So that's just an example, but in general, what I would say for the UK possibly is to, again, create more government support for this field, to create policies that encourage more companies to, say, venture into space. And also, we have a lot of, let's say, difficulties now with supply chain because it doesn't exist so much in the UK, so you still need to depend on other countries like China, and you need to see how to resolve these issues. So we need to create, if the supply chain cannot be developed as fast here, at least support the companies that want to create these relationships with other countries that can support these, let's say, parts that you need to build the robots. in order to bring them in a much easier way and possibly like facilitate this export or import of these say parts. These are just some measures. I guess more people have more ideas about this, but from our part, these policies about, let's say, funding the companies, supporting, subsidizing import-export, and then also possibly tax handling. I mean, these are things that the government can do. Not going as radical as Chinese government maybe, but there are definitely a lot of things the government can do.
Probably don't have a rosier picture, so I'd say I haven't lived in the UK for 15 years for the simple reason there is zero robotic industry here. I've lived in Munich, Silicon Valley, Pittsburgh in America. There's not going to be a robot industry in the UK. There will be, I think, all the big robotics, you have DeepMind and things there, I think there will be labs here working for the companies, we'll have offices. The reason we're actually an American company. We have most of our workforce here, just for the simple fact that there's a great wage arbitrage here compared to America. So I feel that the optimal, for me at least, is having trying to attract the big companies, you know, to come and actually set up headquarters in, well, not headquarters, but set up research division here, because one reason I was attracted here was you have such great talent here, and we managed to get so many good AI engineers that we would have never been able to hire in America, because there's just no industry here. They don't have the options, really. I know it's a bit sad. It's probably what people don't want to hear, but you said it before, there's so many good engineers coming out of Edinburgh, coming out of Birmingham, and there's just no industry. There's just two companies. That's the unfortunate truth in England. And then, you know, don't want to get me started. I don't think the government can help. I just think they're normally useless. So.
I know we had some, I won't point them out, but we had some government people there as well. So yeah, we'll see what's going on.
I mean, I think these guys are living great every day, but you know, from my side, I would say, you know, if there's companies in the UK that can really differentiate and bring some specific technologies to humanoid that's going to make a difference, you know, is there somebody out here doing work on motors or doing work on actuation, you know, 3D printing, is that something that can be used on the skeleton? So, you know, I think there is, you know, pockets of technology in the UK that could be leveraged to support, you know, multiple companies working on humanoid to get better.
Well, sorry to go off script here, but when we talk about government support and so on, well, obviously to get a pilot or something like that is also very, very important in terms of commercial relationships and so on. So how do you see, is it easy to get pilots in the UK, or are companies generally quite happy to engage?
Yeah, so I'd say we've been talking, I won't say who, but we talked to quite a few local, quite big companies. We've also talked with the people, like DHL, you know, Pepsi, all these multinationals that actually have logistics centres in the UK, and they're like, yeah, we'd be quite happy for you to actually do your pilots near Bristol, where a lot of our engineers in. So a lot of the multinational and local people are really keen to do this. Is, you know, I'd just say it's the problem you get for the UK is this weird scenario where you have most of the manufacturing is done in Asia, so you have this supply chain problem. The perfect example is we want to get motors, we want to get things. If they come from Europe, it now takes 5-6 days. You know, from China it takes like a week, so it makes it quite hard to do hardware iterations. And then on the other side of the fundraising, we just get all our money from America. You know, I don't think anyone's going to go out there and raise like 400 or 500 million on a pitch deck because you're a professor. That just doesn't happen in England. I don't know how they do it in America either, but it's yeah. Unfortunately, there's just not that ecosystem really here. But there's some really great talent, so it's a shame.
Interesting. Serious?
I mean, I would agree that there's a lot of interest. The companies we're talking to is like very high-profile companies. They are interested in doing POCs with us, and we are starting as well, like very soon. I cannot disclose more, but we are in the, let's say, starting up POCs in the UK. But the situation with this is that there's a lot of initial response, but there's definitely a lot of steps and a lot of education for the companies that are here because most of them have not done this before. Like there are companies in the US or in China that already have engaged in these operations with humanoids, so they are a bit more experienced about how long it might take, that you need some testing grounds to first make sure that this works before you put on production floor. That is kind of the education that we need to give to customers like this. Whereas, let's say most of the companies that have not been through this path, they expect us to go and deliver a product really fast, or like, when is your, let's say, they try to take us through procurement. So it's like, okay, you're gonna buy this robot by when? And so these discussions are a little bit different. So there are, as I said, companies that are eager, some are educated, so they know that it may take a little bit longer time. Some are not as educated, so you need to educate them, so there is a cost there. So that is definitely, let's say, a difference between some other ecosystems that are a bit more experienced with these sort of POCs with humanoids.
I can't really comment on the UK because we don't have any factories here, but certainly from a Jabil perspective, we're looking at putting humanoids into specific use cases. Now there is challenges with pilots and POCs, and that to start off, as Tor said there, we've got to put it into an environment where it's we can trial it without breaking the process line of one of our customers. So we've got to go through that. We know there's kind of legal ramifications as well on who owns the data that's coming out from that knowledge. There's lots of cameras on these humanoids. What is that camera's capturing in the facility? So there's things to consider, but for us, absolutely, it's one step at a time. And getting these use cases, learning from it. And I think our vision in Jabil is that we have a production line where we're building humanoids, and then the humanoids final test is doing some of those use cases in the factory to prove it out before it gets shipped out.
Awesome, guys. I'm aware that we're running about a bit ahead of time, so I want to answer some questions from the audience as well. So, what's your view on artificial intelligence and in humanoid robots? I mean, what's most important? Is it mechatronics, or is it the software that makes it run, or are they equally important? Perhaps Bruce, perhaps first.
Okay, these are the experts, but what I would say is, there's with the large language models and the kind of the way AI is kind of exponentially increasing, then I think the hardware is going to take the time to kind of catch up on software, and that I think the development time it takes just to develop hardware and test it out. It's not like software you can reiterate every few hours if you need to. So I think there's definitely going to be a challenge there. But I think as AI is used in design now, it's shortening some of that design cycles too. So I think it will come down, but it will certainly like what's happening in the software.
Yeah, every time somebody asks what is more important, the AI or the body, or the mechatronics, both are important. Robotics cannot be seen as just one individual thing. It's like the body and the brain. You cannot have it without it. But it is true that there have been different periods of very fast development, or at least very steady development towards one direction. So up to now, before this AI boom with the large models that we've been seeing, hardware was more or less at a relatively good level to support some functions, and then we're not sure if there's going to be a product for humanoids because the AI was not there. Now the AI is slowly getting there. Slowly, fast in terms of the cycles that we're seeing, how long it took for the hardware to mature, but the AI is getting there. But now we're getting back to the problem of whether the hardware will be reliable enough to make sure that this, let's say, robot as a product will last 5, 7, 10 years. So we're not 100% sure that the hardware is at this stage for this flexibility of use that is required. So I have to say that AI is definitely a huge part of the growth we're seeing now in robots, and of course it's going to keep on driving a lot of the progress that we're seeing in serving all of the use cases. But there's still some question marks in terms of having products that can do everything that we want them to do reliably. So hardware still has some questions apart from what I said, the reliability, also battery, also bipedal, walking and locomotion, so a lot of these other aspects, but yeah, in any case, both are important.
I'll just add something that you said, design the hardware for it. even like if I went back 20 years ago when I worked with Samsung and things like that on humanoid robots, if I saw a human robot today, 10 years ago, I wouldn't be surprised, like, wow, this is different. So apart from the, obviously you need to take something that like 10 years ago was made in like batches of 2 or 3 for academics or inside companies' research lab. I don't think the core technology has really changed. It's still just like mostly harmonic drives or DLDCs or things like that. The big one has just been the last 2 years, just in the amount of money and work that's gone into large language models, gone into the RL, and just basically all the infrastructure that NVIDIA and all these deep mind people have just poured into this that you just wouldn't have it before, you know. With these internet scale, like visual action language models, it's just been groundbreaking. That's one of the reasons why I actually decided to set up this company. Like I went to a a big robotic conference 2 years ago, and I was just blown away by how many papers were actually at this conference and what they could actually do with folding, laundry, all these tasks. I was like, wow, this is actually groundbreaking and incredibly good technology. And it's, so I'd say this whole push in all these companies just based on mainly the AI models that are just incredible now.
Awesome. So just before networking break, then, do you have any questions from our